Yes guys, Jess here, back with another video. Bitcoin's been absolutely getting hammered to the downside. You can see that we have double-digit red gains across the board over here, and we have massive downwards pressure on price across the board, not just in crypto but also the stock market as well. So I have a lot of charts prepared for you guys. I need to be going through all the relevant data points and all the relevant metrics to be seeing if this is the bottom, if we need to be actually taking some positions here, or if this is a massive trap. So make sure to be watching till the end. Make sure to smash up that like button. Let's try and get above 10 likes this video. That'd be absolutely insane. And with that being said, let's get straight away in towards this banger. Bow. So crypto has been absolutely dumping, and we need to be knowing why. Why is this happening right now? And so we've just had $112 million liquidated for the crypto market a few hours ago in about 1 hour. So we've had a massive cascade to the downside, and you can see since December, if you can't even read that number, I'll tell you it's been $1.14 trillion liquidated from the crypto market. We're down over 30% on Bitcoin, and across the altcoins, some altcoins are down 90%, 80%. So enough panicking, enough trying to tell you guys what you already know perhaps, because if you're in the market, you potentially already are experiencing this massive drawdown and you want to be knowing what's going on next. So I'm going to be going through all the different data points. You can see at the time of this recording, it's just been a few minutes since Larry Fink, just in, literally, he was saying that there's likely to be more inflation coming in the next few months. And of course, that's going to be bad for Bitcoin. I'll say that's one of the main reasons we're actually dumping. So I need to be going through all the relevant charts to be seeing if we've topped out or if this is just a massive trap. So make sure to be watching to the end. And looking at the chart, you can see that we've actually broken down from this consolidation pattern, this symmetrical triangle here. We've actually broken down to the downside after retesting it. And then we're having a massive loss of that 80k level, and we're having downwards pressure. A lot of people are flipping bearish here, and we can see that open interest is actually climbing. So this is one clue already that I'm going to be revealing, that you can see that the funding rate in the short term has been flipping negative, whilst open interest has been increasing. And open interest just shows you how many positions are actually open in the market. So if you can see positions are starting to open up but price is coming down, it is one clue that potentially is shorters actually trying to short the price of Bitcoin or whatever asset you're trading. And you need to be looking at the funding rate to be seeing if it's more longs piling in or shorts piling in. And the funding rates are negative. And that's another big clue that potentially this is a massive move driven by a lot of leveraged short positions. And if the price actually starts to spike towards the upside, we're going to see a massive flush in open interest. And you can see that small retest we had over there of this symmetrical triangle here. We actually had open interest start to roll over, which is another thing I've noticed on our lower time frames, indicating that any bounce that we get potentially closing a few levels above that I've monitored, then I think that we're going to have a massive flush of open interest. And yeah, that will essentially mean that we're having a massive short squeeze. So looking at the liquidation map, this is even more evident, as we can see that we're going to have up to $8 billion liquidated at $92,000 for Bitcoin. So of course, the liquidity to the downside is very limited. You know, if you go all the way down to 69k, you're only going to get about 800 million liquidated. But if you get to 92k, you're going to get $1 billion liquidated. So this just shows you that if we actually get a small pump anytime from now, we're going to have a massive short squeeze. You know, the majority of liquidity to the upside. And this is a massive incentive for market makers to push the price to the upside and squeeze all the bears essentially. So we need to be watching out for this scenario. So you can see all the downside liquidity is being grabbed on the liquidation heat map, and we have the majority residing above us. So that's looking quite good. And you can see, if you look at the books right now, we've had a lot of BTC actually being spiked. A lot of these buy orders are getting filled right now. So you can see your walls are actually loading up, and it's likely we can get some moves towards the upside. But just looking at this cluster of buy orders here, we have a big one at 76k, and then just below that, you know, at 76k flat, so 76,500 and 76k, we have massive BTC orders of 600 Bitcoins, which is insane. So I do think that within this region, we're going to get a massive bounce if we haven't already filled enough orders already. So that's something to be watching as well. You can see the funding rates are negative. I showed you on the other chart that they were going negative, and you can see here as well, just looking at the numbers without looking at the chart, you have funding rates for Bitcoin on Bybit flipping negative. You know, across the board, you can see that funding rates are quite negative for Bitcoin and for Ethereum on the right hand side over there. And just looking at the crypto market, funding rates are very low. And if we want to look at a heat map for that, you can see that it's just plain, you know, it's green and purple, indicating extremely low funding rates. When your funding rates are more yellow, it indicates the market is overheated. But in these environments, it's probably the lowest risk area where you want to be accumulating if you believe we're still in a bull market. So looking at Bitcoin, we've been coming down in the short term, and you can see that ever since we've actually lost this level over here, we've actually been coming down to the downside like I've warned. So this is something that I've been talking about on my channel recently, and I did say that we're going to be chopping around in this region for a bit longer, and my views hasn't changed. You know, I think that we're going to be chopping around here, and I'll show you why in a second. But yeah, ever since Trump has been actually inaugurated, we've been coming down to the downside massively, and this has been fueled by his tariff news. So of course we need to be watching out for that, and this week we need to be watching out for the economic news coming out. So tomorrow we have the US CPI, and we have PPI on Thursday, and then on Friday we have some consumer sentiment details. So we need to be looking at that as well. And across the world, so Japan has a lot of news as well, and you can see we have ISM news actually on Thursday too. So we just need to be looking at all of these different things. But tomorrow the biggest one is JOLTS at 3 p.m. GMT, so you need to be watching out for that. You can come onto this website, Forex Factory, and switch it to your time zone and be seeing when that data comes out, because that's going to be a massive indicator that might actually help us bounce. So we need to be looking if that's going to be likely for Bitcoin. But now looking more towards the technicals, you can see we've hit a massive support level where your CME gap was, and I'll go on to that chart in a second. But just focusing on our key level that focuses on opens and closes for the month, the week, and you know, etc. I've just taken off the other ones that I usually cover on the channel, and I have the previous month's low here, and then you have your mid-range and your high, and we've actually swept the low. So this is a model that I do look at where you sweep the lows and then you at least take it to the mid-range and then the range highs. So again, I think that this is going to be a massive opportunity to be accumulating, and I do see us actually testing this 9 and 18 exponential moving average. Maybe we reject it, get a higher low, and then we start a short-term trend before we actually test the mid-range and underside resistance. So of course, we need to be looking at this level here if this is the bottom, because we'll check right now if we fully fill off CME gap, because I think there's a little bit left before we fully fill it. So this might be the best we get. You know, I'm sure we have some bullish divergence, which I'll check in a second. But yeah, it looks like we swept this low and we're going to be running it back to the highs. But the bulls have a lot of work to do. It's been lower lows, lower highs. Like this whole time we've been dumping. So we need to actually have a massive push. We need to be reclaiming our EMAs at least. And then we can attempt to actually punch in some higher highs, reclaim our yearly open, and actually start to reclaim that massive level at 100K. So that's a massive psychological level that a lot of people may be offloading or be wishing to have price get back to. So that's a massive thing that we need to bear in mind. Now, looking at the next chart, you can see that our CME gap, this is the one I've been talking about. We've just about missed it. I think it's at 77.3. We haven't quite got there, but I think this is good enough. This is actually filled, and in my opinion, if we close like this with a slight wick after sweeping a previous month's low, that's going to be the bottom in my opinion. And any lower than that, I think we're going to be going a lot lower, potentially to our 74K support level. So in my opinion, I think that's the bottom. Just looking at in real time, I think that this is the bottom for Bitcoin, and we're going to start to reverse now. So we need to be looking at why. First reason, we have another CME gap above us at 86,800 that was formed over the weekend, and we had a massive dump, and we didn't quite get them enough momentum this US session to continue the move to the upside. We actually dumped straight down. So in my opinion, I think that we're going to be getting a massive move very soon. We're down more than 10% from that CME gap. So if you just look at 86K till now, so if I just go on a normal Bitcoin chart and I actually measure it from 86, which is about here, so you can see to the bottom, it's about 10% to the downside that we flushed. So again, I do think that we're going to get some mean reversion. From daily open, you can see the percentages here. We're about 9% down from our CME chart, and yeah, this is not looking quite good. So we need to be seeing if we can get that bounce, because if we continue the momentum down, we can open the question that if we're in a bull market or not. You can see the Gaussian channel is now flipping bearish and we're on support. So any bounces, that can be a lower high into your Gaussian channel where it starts to straighten out like this, and then you can get a massive move towards the downside, and yeah, anything can happen. So we need to be looking at these levels, and I need to be looking at a few more data points. Now, looking at why we started to dump, you know, we had a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So Donald Trump actually signed this, and we had a massive move to the downside. So of course, there was a lot of news actually coming out, and you can see by this amazing thread by Miles, he actually highlights why we're actually potentially having that dump. And the main reason you can see is because we did not have the approval of the strategic Bitcoin reserve being accumulated by taxpayer money. So essentially, the treasury has to actually develop budget neutral strategies to actually acquire some Bitcoin, i.e. selling other coins to actually accumulate Bitcoin, which wouldn't be net positive. That's not new liquidity flowing into the crypto market. So essentially, that's had a massive negative reaction in general, and of course we couple that with the S&P actually dumping towards the downside due to the tariff jitters. You have a lot of scares in the market that's adding to the sell pressure, and we're having this move to the downside in crypto that's being exacerbated. You can see that if we zoom out, we're actually having hidden signals in the market right now. We're having bullish divergence that's actually hidden. You can see if your price is actually giving you higher highs, but your RSI is giving you a lower low, that indicates that momentum's gearing up for a massive move, and we still haven't lost structure. So in my opinion, this is still bullish for me. Although we are dumping, we are on support, and this is not the time to be getting bearish in my opinion. We have this parabolic curve potentially playing out. Now you can see that one reason is the Bitcoin fear and greed index. Is that extreme fear is very, very unlikely that you're going to actually hit a Bitcoin top and enter a bear market when everyone's already fearful. So there you go. I've actually put it in a nice chart for you, and you can see that every time we hit the zone, we typically get a massive pump if you still think we're in a bull market. And in my opinion, we're still in a bull market. Now you can see one metric that's actually showing that we can get a massive pump is your global liquidity. That's the primary driver of why markets actually expand and contract. You know, if there's more global liquidity, more people have money, there's no more money in the system. So of course, this is going to find its way to Bitcoin when people decide to actually take risk. So this is a massive reason why I think we're going to have a massive bounce very soon. And of course, this is a time lag. This is something that happens not instantly. You know, you can backtest this and see when global liquidity turns the corner. For example, look at the first point. Global liquidity starts to move up in November. Bitcoin actually came down first, consolidated first, then moved up. And global liquidity was already topped out. And by the time it started to come down, Bitcoin was still higher highs, higher lows. And then you can see that the trend of global liquidity was low lows or highs. Then Bitcoin decided to come down for a bit in towards October, where we had the ETF news. Then global liquidity started to surge towards the upside. And shortly after this time, actually, Bitcoin started to move towards the upside. So you could just look at this and see that every time global liquidity starts to turn, first, you can see when we had that massive crash in around August 6th, global liquidity actually started to pump in and around July. And then only after Trump got elected, we had that massive move towards the upside. But of course, global liquidity was already in a massive uptrend. Now, global liquidity actually came down in October, and Bitcoin is only starting to roll over now. Global liquidity actually started to move up in around January, and Bitcoin is still rolling over. So we actually may have a massive catch up very soon. You can see that this has a 2.5 month lag. So this actually feels one of my next points that I'll go in towards, and I'll explain why I think that we're actually going to consolidate for a bit more. So now moving on to the next chart that I have here, you can see that of course global liquidities had a massive bullish cross using a demo 100 EMA, and you can see that the global liquidities cross bullish now, and every time it's cross bullish we had a massive bull run. So of course we're dipping in the short term, but if you zoom out, I still think that this year is going to be massively bullish, and you can see that the global liquidity has actually turned the corner already. Of course, this happens with a lag typically. So this is one reason again why we're potentially going to have at least one more leg towards the upside. Now you can see this factor actually shows you every time that we have a massive reason to come down. For example, now it was the buyback hack that started to move down, and of course the tariffs as well, which I think that was the main reason we actually started to dump. Typically, we have a consolidation for about 1 to 2 months before we actually had the next leg higher. So like I've said in my previous videos, I've perfectly said this, that I don't think we're going to have a V-shaped recovery straight away. I think we're going to consolidate for a bit. We might actually go in towards our previous month's mid-range, like I've talked about on this chart over here. So you can see that I think that we've swept the lows now, and it's likely we can just chop around a bit more. Maybe we come down and fill the CME gap completely. But in this region, I do think that we're going to have a move towards the upside at least, because we're down quite a bit after hitting our yearly open. So of course, nothing goes down in a straight line, nothing goes up in a straight line. You're going to have contractions and expansions, and you know, this is the laws of physics. For every action there is a reaction. So I think, yeah, we're going to get a little move at least in the short term, and that's where we could be deciding if that's enough for us to actually start to reclaim our previous levels and actually target the next one. But for now, I'm taking it level to level, and I do think that, yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a consolidation here. You know, it can just be range lows to range highs. Then we actually have a massive move towards the upside. Once we have some bullish news, for example, the FOMC meeting where Powell changes his tune, or, you know, there's another reason why we actually start to get some bullish momentum behind us. But yeah, in the longer term, I still think that this is a massive year where your altcoins are going to go parabolic. Now the altcoins are down massively, especially this week. You know, this is just been a nail in the coffin for a lot of these altcoins. They've come down massively, and I've been telling you guys I'll only cover altcoins on my channel when I think it's certain that the opportunity is there, and I'm very close. I think that this dump has provided serious life-changing opportunities across the board in the altcoin sector. A lot of people will be losing hope now, but I think that this is a massive opportunity. You know, when you see the red like this and people are disinterested, this is where you need to be very greedy and you need to be scrambling for your entries. So in my opinion, I think that, yeah, this is the year that we're going to have a massive alt season, and I still believe this. I may be wrong. I may be crazy. We'll have to see. But I think, yeah, this is a massive year where you want to be taking advantage of some of the altcoins. And we got to talk about the biggest altcoin by market cap, Ethereum, right now. We have Ethereum on massive support. This is potentially a massive consolidation pattern where we have a megaphone where we trade all the way towards the top side of the resistance before we can actually evaluate if it's enough before we actually start to squeeze towards the upside. But of course, it's been brutal. We've been coming down to the downside very violently. But of course, you never want to catch a falling knife, but you can see that this has been a massive downtrend. So you're going to at least get a little bounce where maybe you create a lower high. And that's where, if you think we're going to go to zero on Ethereum, you're going to get a bounce very soon. And then maybe that's where we go down. I think that's extremely unlikely. Of course, this is not good to be seen. This is very bearish in my opinion. If I saw a coin like this or a meme coin or something, you know, losing levels like this, in my opinion, I would say, yeah, this is likely to pull off something like this where, you know, it consolidates for a bit, then it just starts to bleed down very quickly. So, of course, this is not good to be seen. But again, I do think that we're going to turn the corner very soon. Now, one reason is because we're still on horizontal support. So until the support level is lost that I've drawn out, I do think that Ethereum can see a little bit of a bounce. And of course, I've marked out some horizontal rays that maybe you can mark out on your chart too, where I think that we can get a potential deviation here. And if you reclaim this level, so if you get above 2.13, call it, so 2,130, I think that, yeah, Ethereum is good to go. You're going to be seeing a potential relief rally at least towards your mid-range at 2.8 potentially, or 2.9. So around this region here, then maybe that's where you can start to roll over, and that will be your high, that will be your lower high, and maybe we go into a downtrend for Ethereum where the bull market's over. But in the short term, I think that that's very unlikely. You know, I still see Ethereum going very high, but in the interim short term, we're actually dumping, so that's fine. But again, like for today, tomorrow, the rest of this week, and if you want to be trading, I do think that this is a massive level that Ethereum is going to respect. And, you know, invalidations below 2,700 there, you know, if you start to see closing candles and too much time spent below that level, then your next level to watch is 2.4 in my opinion, before you get any bounces. So I think that, you know, you have a good chance that you're going to start moving up now. If not, then your next level to be watching is 2.4 for Ethereum. But yeah, this is the spring phase in my opinion. You know, we've lost this level now. This was screenshotted before this dump, and this is playing out. So yeah, you can see that if we reclaim the level that I've talked about, you know, very similar level, I think that we're going to be seeing this potentially playing out. So again, this is very low risk because your invalidation is super tight and your risk is quite low. So if you haven't been accumulating or you want to add some more to your position, I think Ethereum is at a decent spot right now. So I'm at least going to be doing that myself. And if you want to be following along, of course, no financial advice. This is all my opinion, like I always say. That's definitely something you could be watching. But yeah, massive support for Ethereum. And of course, we have this trend line support on the logarithmic chart. And every time we've hit this trend line, we've bottomed out. So in my opinion, I think in the long term, I'm trusting the cycles. I think that we've bottomed out on Ethereum. And, you know, your Bitcoin dominance is going to be breaking down eventually, in my opinion. Rising wedge, massive resistance. So yeah, I do think that this is going to be playing out. We're going to have that massive move towards the downside. And yeah, if you accumulate, you'll be a massive profit. So if you want to be looking to take that trade or start to accumulate, you have these links down below here. So you have a link for Blofin where you could be getting $100,000 in deposit bonuses, and this ends in about 8 days. So you want to be taking advantage of that and actually be claiming that bonus there. And if you want to be trading the short-term moves, like I've talked about, potentially range lows to range highs, so you can see that we swept the lows and you want to potentially take a trade in towards the next level of resistance, or if you want to wait for, you know, a breakdown and then you want to short it to the next one, that's definitely an option you could look at. And I recommend you look at HyroTrader, where they offer $100,000 in your buyback account to be trading with if you actually pass your challenge. So of course you get 100,000 to trade with, and you have two phases, so phase 1 and 2, and phase 1 is 10%, phase 2 is 5%, and then upon passing your account, you're going to get a refund of your challenge fee. So you can see your challenge fee here, which is discounted using that first link down below here for HyroTrader. That's the fee for the challenge. But if you do pass your account and you're actually a good trader, you get your money back, and of course you get to keep up to 90% of the profits once you scale your account made. So I think if you are interested in actually doing that and you are a good trader, then definitely look at HyroTrader and you can get a nice 5% discount using my link down below. And if you aren't a good trader, make sure to be checking out 𝗚𝗥𝗔𝗦𝗦, which is my trading community where we actually go through how to actually take these trades and make some nice profits this market. You can see, you know, Spill is another analyst and he's been taking some banger entries to the upside or downside. You can see to the downside, smash take profit. We've been shorting long end, all sorts in the group. So make sure to be checking this out. And yeah, that'll be it from me. Slightly longer video, but hopefully this has helped you to actually have the levels marked out and know what to expect. But of course, I always cover this first on Twitter. So make sure to be following me on Twitter for consistent updates here. I'm sharing all the charts that I do include on the YouTube well ahead of time. So make sure to be following me here as you'll be getting the relevant data points and the alpha first. But yeah, that'll be it from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys. See ya. Bye-bye.